So you'll be seeing a link to a GoFundMe for Geoff throughout this episode. That's because, as you'll hear Geoff mention later on, he's been on the heart transplant list for years. And 3 days after we taped this interview, Geoff finally received his new heart. His recovery has been incredibly difficult and much slower and more complicated than anyone expected. He's starting to rally now, but he's still been in the ICU for a long time. Anything that any member of the community can do to help him, whether by donating, sharing, or both, would be so appreciated. Thank you. Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Vox and Guest, and I am finally joined today, after many false starts and reschedulings of many kinds, by Geoff from and of Titanosaur. Geoff, woo! Say hi, Geoff.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi.
How you doing? It's so good to see you. I know, how you doing is a tricky question.
Yeah, it's a long answer to that one.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to that, but I wanted to make sure that you knew, because we have a lot of music to talk about today. A lot. You are a prolific gent. You are. And thankfully so, because there's lots of ass kicking to be had sonically for people listening to Titanosaur. But before we get to that, as intense as your life has been and as many serious and important things as you think you've lived through, you have not answered the first question on Vox and Guest yet. And so I have to ask you this, and I don't want to make you feel pressured or nervous in any way, but the fate of the correct answer is completely in your hands at this point. So just, relax into that for whatever that's worth. And I want you to think long and hard, as someone who spends a good deal of time reclining, about the answer to the following question. Once and for all, Geoff, what is the correct sleeping position? Is it side? Is it back? Is it belly? What's the answer? What's the deal?
I have severe scoliosis, so for me, it's always a side.
Okay. Okay. So now, if you didn't have severe scoliosis, and kudos to me for identifying yet another situation that you go through unintentionally, would you sleep on your side? Were you always a side sleeper?
No, stomach.
Stomach sleeper.
Yeah.
Ooh. So how do you do that without just being like in the pillow? You
No.
So you're on your belly, but your head's turned to the side? That seems
there are a couple of ways. The head turned to the side,
enlighten me, tell me, educate me.
Or having the pillow sort of angled different, like, on an angle. So that so you're kind of like that.
Okay. Oh, I see. So you're sort of like snuggling up against your pillow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes. Yeah. I always imagine people who slept on their stomachs were just like all night. So I'm glad that you've explained it to me. Okay. But so for you, out of necessity, it's side sleeping.
Yeah. Otherwise, my back is killing me.
Now I'm gonna ask a bonus question, because I am also a side sleeper. Are you also a knee bender, or are you a stick straight side sleeper?
Knee bender, because that's how I was actually taught to sleep, which is also why I sleep on my side.
Did you go to sleep school, Geoff? Or you have like a PhD in sleep? Look at you.
No. I used to take Tai Chi with a Tai Chi master way back when I was about 12.
Oh, no kidding.
He said, you stand like a tree. Yes, I don't remember how you sit, maybe like a rock, but you sleep like a bow. And so the only way you get that rounded thing is by bending your knees.
A boat. See, I always think the number 4.
A bow.
Oh, a bow. I was like, how do you sleep like a boat? Just like, okay, all right, we're good. I'm learning so much. I feel like the interview should be about this now, Geoff. We don't need to talk about your mute. We're good. We have Tai Chi sleep education people. You're getting this for free. For free.
I have so many stories that we could go in tons of different directions.
We probably will. But let's start simple. Okay, because I know there's complicated ahead. So you hard to define your sound, which I always love. I love when it's not super, I mean, it's not like it's like, wow, is this Tibetan throat singing? But like you've got heavy metal, you've got punk rock, you've got stoner stuff, you've got some like really doomy bits, you've got a whole lot of different genres going on. And I know that you have some very disparate influences, but I am curious before we get to any of that. How did baby Geoff, little Geoff, teenage Geoff, how did you get into music in the first place? When did you figure out you're a musician?
Well, those are two different questions, though, because I got
Okay,
into music because my uncles had a music collection. My mom had me when she was 18, and she had three siblings. So my uncles are really only about 14 years older than me.
cool.
So they were
Okay.
kind of like big brothers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I raided their record collection, uh, which was full of, they had a diverse taste. There was everything from Sex Pistols, Queen, Black Sabbath,
Oh,
Uriah Heep, everything.
okay, good stuff
Ramones.
though. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Were they
So,
Motorhead too? Was that, or did
no,
you
no,
do?
not yet.
Okay, later. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Okay.
they can later. But
All right.
yeah, that's where I hooked on to the Ramones and Queen at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that was around 6, 5, 6. But then my mom gave me actually, and it was when I was listening to Queen's one of their songs, Brighton Rock. Um, that Brian May, there's a break where Brian May has a guitar coming out of one speaker, sort of like an echo out of one and then the other.
Oh, he pans back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. It's
yeah.
funny. A lot of their songs I don't know by name, but then I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard this one. So okay, that part sounds familiar at least because it's very sort of spacey. Yeah. All right. I got you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we had a big gigantic stereo at that time, so I had huge speakers so I
So
could
you
really hear it.
really got to hear it. Okay.
And that's when I decided that playing the guitar was what I was going to do.
So it was
So
Brian May. Okay. So you aimed low for inspiration. You went with somebody who's not very good at what he does, Brian May, just
nah, yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. So that is an auspicious start. So you were into music and then you heard Brian May and it was like it's guitar. So when did you get a guitar right away? Were you like 6 when you got a guitar?
No, my mom gave me an acoustic guitar when I was about 12. And then I took the prerequisite, you know, guitar courses
Yeah.
where I learned like, Stairway to Heaven and
Sleeping like a
the
boat. Yeah, yeah, where you learned all the important stuff. Now, did you like your lessons? Because we have only on this show ever had one person who had a music teacher or like lessons where they were like, this was great, I got so much out of it. Everybody else, like I think Louis Tivy had one lesson and then asked for his money back or something. I was like, so was this like, you didn't speak of it with great regard, but was it okay? Did it get the job done or?
well, I about over the teenage years, I took lessons from maybe 3 or 4 different people.
Okay.
One of them was where I got the best advice from, which was learn to stay in time. You miss
Yes.
notes, doesn't matter, stay in time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good advice. It's really
And
good
maybe
advice.
that's why I'm more of a rhythm guitar player. But
Okay.
that was pretty much. He also made me realize that most guitars are playing inside a box, up and down.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to go all over the fret, just go in that box.
That's
And he
very
was a
cool.
great blues and jazz guitar player. So,
Okay. Where you really have to know your fundamentals. Like you
yeah.
really do. And then you can iterate. Okay. All right. So you had at least one. You are now the second person that had a positive thing to say about any kind of music education. Hooray for Geoff. Okay. So you pick up guitar, you're about 12. And then, because now, I mean, you're also singing. You do the bass, you do all the drum programming. So you picked up other stuff along the way. Did you start singing right away? Was it like smoke on the wall or
Oh,
no?
I started singing out of necessity. I
Okay.
put together all the bands that I've been in, and so I always chose somebody else to sing because
Really?
I'm a shy guy. So
Okay. Okay.
uh, and I didn't really like my voice, my singing voice at the time. Um,
Okay. At the time is
but
good. I
yeah.
like that you do now.
Oh
That's
yeah, no, yeah. I learned to like it.
okay.
Was like 10 years ago now is when I became comfortable with my singing voice.
Okay. Comfortable is
Um,
good.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I know what my limits are, and I know where my voice sits. So I'm good with that.
Every singer, every musician has to, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I might want to sing Ann Wilson. Not gonna do it. Like, it's not gonna happen. I mean, and what is that thing from Jurassic Park? Like, you were so busy wondering whether you could, you didn't stop to think about whether you should or whatever. That's kind of how I always am with, like, should I sing this song? I could, but should I? So I feel you. I feel you on that. Self-knowledge is a very good thing. So okay, so you've been playing guitar then for a minute, right? I mean, clearly not a day over 21, but you've been playing guitar since you were 14. And at some point, out of necessity, you started singing, but there's a lot in the middle there. So were the bands that you were in, because there wasn't a lot about that I found. And I imagine there are reasons for that or not.
Well, no, it's just
not the project
just,
that you're in. So
yeah, it's just too much time and stuff that happened that doesn't really matter right now.
gotcha.
But yeah, no, at a high school band, we did like Motorhead and we did Misfits Danzig covers.
Okay.
And then in college, I had a band. And the singer from that band actually just found me again a couple months ago, and we've been
no
connecting
kidding.
again.
That's
So,
cool. Okay,
yeah.
that's very cool. That was also a cover band?
No, that was all originals that I was writing.
Okay.
I would write the lyrics and everything. But yeah, and so there's that. And then after I finished college, it was a punk band called the Orgasmobots. That was a lot of fun.
For the name alone, how could you not have a good time? So, okay, so was college when you started writing originals, or was that just the first time that you like actually were playing them?
In high school, I started trying to write originals. I would borrow the synthesizer sequencer, whatever it was called, from the music department, and bring it home and try to figure out how to use it to make drum patterns and stuff like that, so that I could play along. But that was because I heard Ministry's "Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste." I was like, I can do that. That's awesome.
Okay.
So
excellent. I like your inspirations. These are good. This is all like very people in the audience will be happy with the things that you're saying and the bands that you're naming. So okay, so you had a whole host of bands. And then 2017 comes, and I know there's a lot of life in the middle there we'll get back to, and you began Titanosaur. So this is not a brand new project. We're in year 7 at this point now. So that explains a little bit how you can have 5 LPs and 1 EP and singles, and you got a lot of music, dude. You really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's also because I don't play out live, so I have nothing else to do but make new music.
Right. So. You're a studio guy. Yeah, but you know what though? I interview a lot of studio musicians who don't necessarily, I mean, they haven't been around for 7 years either, but you know, it's you I know you have a lot of time on your hands, especially these days and everything. And again, we'll get to that. But I mean, so you started the project and the idea was just you're going to do everything. So when did you pick up bass?
Oh, I picked up. I mean, to me, playing bass is like playing the guitar. So a lot of people, well, a lot of people used to say that when I played in bands with my friend George. He was the bass player. I was the guitar player. And people would say I played like a bass player on my guitar, and he played like a guitar player on his bass.
Hey, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter.
Peanut butter on my chocolate.
Okay.
So, picking up the bass for me was no issue at all.
Okay.
And I played bass in a goth band back before everything else also. So, bass, I like bass.
All right. You're just going to throw in these little nuggets of information. But all right. I think maybe early, but I know that any other question I ask might lead us down a series of rabbit holes. So before we get too much further, I'm going to give the people what they want, and we're going to play the song. Okay. So this is brandy new when we're recording this, at least. So this came out March 4th. And why don't you say a little something about Bloodline before we play it for everybody?
So Bloodline, this is actually, speaking of vocals, I stretch a little bit in this one because I could, and it needed it. Mm-hmm. And I think it sounds good, so it worked for me. But the song itself is really a tribute to my grandmother, who came to the U.S. in the 60s, in the mid-60s, and taught herself how to read English and speak English. And
came from
from Ecuador. and a little small town in the volcanic mountains of Ecuador.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's really about being part of her bloodline, because all her siblings live into their 90s, like strong and working the farms and all that. And yeah, and they grew up in a live volcano right over them, you know.
Jeez.
So
No pressure.
yeah, so I feel that that heritage kind of thing. So
This is a good thing, especially given what we'll get into in a bit. I like that you have that encouragement from your bloodline. So let's do it, guys. This is Titanosaur with Bloodline.
Came down from the mountains, flew over the waters and opened the doors. Struggling to learn, following her tears, creating her own dream. Born into this bloodline, forever fighting for the sunshine. Never forget, never forget, never forget, I'll never forget you. Bring them all over, she said, as she worked hard. Let them all fend for themselves, and they worked hard. Born into this bloodline, forever fighting for the sunshine. Never forget, never forget, never forget, I'll never forget you. Came down from the mountains, flew over the waters and opened the doors. Born into this bloodline, forever fighting for the sunshine. Never forget, never forget, never forget, I'll never forget you.
So I really like this song, and I it's interesting because you released this and Let Me Go rather together, right? So and I feel like this is another level that you're taking the music to, having heard everything else that you've done that at least was out that I could find. And I don't mean to imply anything negative about everything that came before it, but it's interesting that you said, you know, vocally you were pushing it a little bit. It needed it. I agree. Like it went where it needed to go. But I love that super thuddy bass. Big fan of that. And I mean your timbre vocally is so distinctive. You have that very growly, kind of gravelly vox in there that I think just adds such an edge to everything. And this song, I love the way you build in the guitar, and then you play around with, it may not actually be tempo, but maybe you're doing eighth notes instead of 16th, or quarter notes instead of eighth notes or whatever. But the way that you play with the rhythms and the way that you play with the drums, I just love that sort of push pull feel to the piece. So like, how long did this one take to come? I know you've been laid up, and I mean, maybe before we get into everything else with the music, should we tackle the elephant in the hospital room?
Yes, I'm in a hospital room.
You are in a hospital room. So guys, we'll get back to talking about Bloodline and the music more specifically in a minute. But I think, something for me that in listening to your catalog and, researching you and your project, the fact that you have been able to do everything that you've been able to do, given everything that you've gone through for the last 15, I mean, it's more than that, I know, but like basically it seems like most of your life. So I don't know, how much you want to fill people in on your story and all of that. And, clearly you're not like sitting there with a little violin about it, but, it's a significant part of your life, and it does explain why you are in a hospital room right now, which people may or may not have picked up on. It's pretty nondescript there, so I'm not sure they would automatically know.
So I was born with Marfan syndrome, which is a genetic syndrome disorder that means I have less connective tissue. My connective tissue doesn't stretch as much as everybody else's, and organs are made of connective tissue. Skin, pretty much everything in your body is made of connective tissue.
Yeah.
And the biggest muscle that's made of connective tissue is your heart. So for me, so I've had 3 surgeries so far, 3 heart surgeries, to fix different things around my heart. But my heart's just gotten so tired that I'm waiting for a heart transplant for the past 2 years. So I'm here in the hospital today. Today is day 31 of this stint.
Yeah.
Back in 2023, I was in for 5 weeks in January to February. And that's actually where I wrote most of the album that I put out in September.
Right.
Goes.
Right.
And the song "Let Me Go," I also wrote it then. So yeah, that's the very simple, basic thing of what's going on.
You're like, that's my encapsulation of like literally everything that's been, I mean, but okay. So, I mean, not to gloss there and not to dwell either, but I mean, so you go into the hospital. Is this like, are you going into AFib and they're shocking you back? Like, what's the, like, why,
So yeah, I've been shot 3 times.
Okay.
To get my heart back in rhythm, and it sucks because they haven't gotten they put you they give you anesthesia, so you're supposedly asleep, but they haven't gotten the right amount into me all 3 times. So each time it's different. One time my wife said that I jumped up and said, "Oh fuck."
That's a pretty apropos response. Yeah. Okay.
But the third one I do remember because they definitely didn't give me enough anesthesia, and that really hurt. But yeah, so I have tachycardia, which is basically the heart starts racing.
Yeah.
And for me, it sometimes gets up to like 100 beats per minute, and so that's not good for me.
No.
For like 8 hours. So
okay.
So that's why the other thing is that the rest of my body and organs are so healthy that I don't qualify to go up very high on the transplant list. So they keep me in the hospital. They have a reason to keep me in the hospital, but keeping me in the hospital raises me up to a level where the heart transplant is actually realistic. Because there's 6 levels, and I'm at level 6 when I'm at home. And there's just, with my body size, my blood type, there's
Right.
just no way I'm getting a heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they keep me in here, put me up to level 2, and so that's much more realistic.
Mhm.
Somebody could come running in any minute
Right. And you know what?
right
We
now.
we would only have them wait till the end of the interview, and then you could go ahead and get the transplant. I mean, we this show is important, people. I mean, we're not just going to stop it for a little heart transplant. No, let's hope that happens. I would love for that to be like the next reason that we have to reschedule this interview.
Yeah,
Sorry, I have to go. New heart. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, and again, I think that again, you're not you have a very good sense of humor. Maybe it's gallows humor about this. Like, what else are you going to do, right? I mean, you can't sit there and just, you could, plenty of people would and do, and I'd be fine with that too, but you seem to be, okay, it is as it is.
Yeah, I've always loved laughter. I've always believed laughter is much healthier than medicine. I mean, I do take medicine. I don't say no to that.
Yeah.
But no, laughter is very important, very healthy, and so yeah, my family also. I have 2 kids, and their friends always are surprised that they're so happy with me being in the hospital, in and out,
Yeah.
and they're like, "What else are we gonna do?"
Right. Exactly. That's your life. Like, this is just people adjust. So I mean, and you have, I think, it's going to be, and I haven't forgotten about Bloodline, everybody. I will get back to it, but like, I think it makes sense to mention that one of your songs has kind of been serving as your mantra for all of this time, right? So Eater of Death, which love that, love everything about that, love the title, love everything about it. So in writing that, was that just like a big fuck you to the whole thing? Like, talk me through that a little bit.
Well, the interesting thing was that I wrote that because it was going on a compilation, a benefit compilation for the National Transplant Association.
Right.
And this was before I knew anything that I would need one.
It was before that. Okay, that I didn't realize. Okay.
So I was writing it to give people a
Hoping,
kind of battle cry kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
To keep up the hope kind of thing. And then, a couple months after that benefit happened, I was told that I needed one. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, you're like, well, I got the song now. So, I mean, but that song is a total fucking kick in the head. And I love that. It's just big and it's fast. I get big Metallica vibes, lots of rock, especially from the chorus. And like, the lyrics are they are anthemic. I'm going to go ahead and use that word. A battle cry is a great way to describe it, because I mean, and you're not being super specific. People could use that for anything where they needed to just get amped the fuck up to fight off something that's like, that they need to. But I mean, I did not realize that. That's so interesting that it wasn't even written for you. It's just serving you differently now. Okay.
Yeah, I had an audience in mind. I didn't have me in mind, but it's one of my favorite songs that I've written.
Yeah. No, and I think so. Okay, so to kind of now broaden out a little bit, and we'll come back and forth. But I mean, being in this situation and being in and out of the hospital, you had 4 times last year. You're at 1 so far this year. You will be. It's funny when I had to reschedule with Geoff again a couple days ago, and I was like, are you free? And he's like, I am literally always free. Like, I am lying here waiting for a heart. Like, I'm my schedule. Let me check my calendar. Yep, I'm free. And it's, again, it's very funny, but the fact that you're using that time to write. I mean, in 5 weeks you're in the hospital, you write echoes, and I mean, and again, it seemed like last year, I think you were in for a couple months and you did a lot of writing then too. So, I mean, I know you've mentioned that music is emotionally regulating for you, which I imagine, it is for, I think, most of us, if not all of us, especially musicians. But like, I'm assuming that's a sanity move, right? You're in there and you're just like, fucking hell, let me write, 4 albums or whatever. Like, so, I mean, is that's just, now when you feel well enough to write, which is sort of surprising to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way I write makes it easy. Like I write riffs first, or on the side, I write riffs, and then I write lyrics on the other side.
Okay.
And then once the riffs get put into a song, then I look for lyrics that fit and put it all together. Sometimes I
Okay.
do write lyrics as I'm listening to what I put together musically. But so that makes it easy. Like I have GarageBand on my iPad. I plug in my
Okay.
guitar, and I just record when I'm here. So yeah, and unfortunately, these 32 days, I've only picked up my guitar twice so far because just nothing's coming to mind. But that's a state of mind thing right now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. At home, it's the same thing. But the thing at home is I only spend about 3 hours a day doing it all. I may have the whole day where I'm not doing anything because I can't, but
Right.
I
Right.
only have a certain amount of energy anyway.
To do exactly. And I mean, like, nobody's going to sit there for, well, some people, but like every day for 16 hours. Like, I mean, it's inspiration comes when it comes, or it doesn't when it doesn't. You're going to tire out. You're going to burn out. Like, that's.
Well, yeah, but it's also a muscle.
Yeah.
And I learned this 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I started participating in February Album Writing Month,
Right.
where you
That's no joke.
you only have like 26 days or whatever in February to write a whole album. And so you're writing every day, and that really gets the muscle moving.
Yeah.
So I can write riffs whenever. It's just, do I feel motivated to write riffs?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've amassed like a library of riffs, and then so you will go to that. So now, and just to get a little bit more into that songwriting process, then, so a riff will occur to you. You'll presumably either on your phone or whatever. You'll lay that down just to have it, and then in terms of lyrics, like, because it's funny to me that you're saying that you don't always or even usually write those for each other, because it goes so well together in the music that I wouldn't have been like, oh, this might have been a riff he did 6 months ago and he just wrote these lyrics last week, and and you're sort of Jenga-ing them together, or Tetrising maybe, but like whichever blocky game I'm thinking of. But so, I mean, with lyrics, how easy is it for you to find lyrics, to get inspired for lyrics? Because some people, they're like, I can write riffs all day, but the lyrics just they're driving me nuts. I can't get them. Some people are like, yeah, I have lyrics, but I can never figure out what the music is going to be. That's me. So how do you prefer one over the other? Are they both easy, one harder?
The lyrics are definitely the hardest part.
Okay.
I have lyrics everywhere, on my phone, on pieces of paper, on my computer. I have them everywhere.
Okay.
So I can't look everywhere all the time. So basically, I look on my phone to see what I have, scribbled on my notes thing.
Okay.
And if anything catches my ear, it's really about more the rhythm of the words. It has to go with the song the right
Yeah.
way.
Right.
And then the other thing is, do I feel comfortable singing these words? Because sometimes I'll write lyrics that are just weird, and I don't feel comfortable singing them. So
okay, well,
those
so
are out.
let's because that piques my interest. So talk to me about that when you say weird, because weird means an awful lot of different things to different people. And I'm fundamentally incredibly weird. So I'm curious what your weird looks like. What is it? Like psychedelic? Is it, something like what don't you feel comfortable singing that you've written? That's fascinating to me.
Nothing comes to mind because I don't feel comfortable, so I don't remember it. But
Okay.
let's see. I can open up my notes thing right now. Let's see.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's find something fucking weird, man. Let's just. Well, I mean, I'm because my head's going. Okay, well, is it something that is maybe more vulnerable or intimate or revealing than you want to get into, or is it just like, I don't know where, like I guess I'm trying to understand what what you mean by weird.
Yeah. It's usually when I do a forced rhyme, when I'm really forcing it, it doesn't feel like it's natural.
Okay.
Or it's something super cheesy that I just.
Okay. I got you. All right. So
me.
something that doesn't feel authentic to you, or okay. Because you do have some songs, not too many of them that we'll get to, because I you have dozens and dozens, and we're obviously not going to be able to go through all of them, but there are certain ones that I especially wanted to get the stories of from you, because I particularly like them, and you will have a song like Tired, right? Which is not a standard Titanosaur song at all, but it's still you, and I love it. So again, we'll come back, but okay, so now see, people, we're here. I'm coming back to Bloodline. So you wrote this. Now you said you wrote Let Me Go a while ago, but Bloodline was newer, I'm gathering.
Yeah.
Okay, so take me through that. Was that, when did you start it? When did you finish it? Was that, some of them I'm assuming come quickly, some of them take longer, or are you pretty okay? So what's the Bloodline story? Because that's a big thing to write about.
This one was tough. I wrote the music like maybe a month before I started putting it together. So
okay. And did you know what it was going to be about? Did you know this was going to be a tribute to? Okay.
No, not musically. I didn't. I was just, sometimes I just say I want to write a song in 5/4, and this was one of them.
Okay.
And so I stretch a drum loop out for 6 minutes and just let it go and record, and then play over it, and that's what came out.
Okay.
So that's also why 5/4 definitely gives that kind of moving forward, falling over kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But the lyrics were a tough one for this because I wrote the chorus, and the chorus felt great. The chorus sounded the way I wanted it to sound, but the verse I was having a lot of trouble with the verse until I decided we're just going to keep the verses short and make it more about the chorus.
Yeah.
So that's when it all came together.
Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting because the chorus is where. Now, what exactly are you doing to give it that almost slowed down feel there? Is it just that the program is different for the drums? Is it?
No, like so dynamics have always been part of what I concentrate on in the songs.
So important.
So and because I use GarageBand, I can't change time signatures. So it's like so I have usually one drum beat is in the time, and the other one is halftime.
Okay.
To kind of give it
that's what I was figuring. It was just it was obviously the same. It was obviously the same tempo, is the same time signature. It was just I love when musicians do that, where you just play at halftime and you really hone in on that, and it gives that chorus such like a dirty, heavy, sinky kind of feel, and it does force me, at least my ear, to hone in on it more, and I think that the verses are pretty big relative to the chorus, and I think that that's so interesting too, because it's usually the other way around, right? And then the bridge kind of picks up a little bit more with the solo, but I love how you keep focusing on that, never forget, never forget, never forget you, and like it just the song builds in such a great way, but I don't feel like you're doing a ton to make that happen. It's all placed very smartly. Does that make sense? That there is so much dynamic in the song, and there is so much movement in it, and there's so much texture to it, but you're not wildly changing anything. You're not layering in tons and tons and tons of tracks. It's all very simple, but it's elegantly done, and it has a lot of punch. So like, how much of that were you like, this is what I'm gonna, because you're being very like, oh yeah, I write things, whatever, but like, there's intricacy there that I'm curious to get at the meat of. Like you have the riff, but like the riff is not the whole thing. And was it the riff for the chorus? Was it the riff for like, talk to me a little more? Yeah.
So when I jam, I basically write a song.
Okay.
It just comes straight out at once. And then when I go listen back to it, because I got to play the guitar at least 4 times to record it right, 2 on each side.
Right.
That's when I start making changes. That's when I start hearing different drums.
Okay.
And sometimes, like with this song, I do a bass line, because this is all before vocals come in.
Right.
I do a bass line that sounds great, but it's a little too complicated. So once I start putting vocals, it's just clashing.
Oh yeah, too busy. Yeah. Okay.
So I have to change the bass line to keep it more driving instead. So all that comes together in different stages of the songwriting. I'm constantly listening to it back over and
Okay.
over,
Okay.
seeing what I like about it. And then I also remember hearing, I don't know, it was like 20 years ago or something, that just changing one sound changes the whole section. So, each section just add one
That's
sound or
true.
take away
Yeah.
one sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. That's great, because that's exactly what I was reacting to without consciously going, oh, and here he added this, here he took this. I mean, the drums were most noticeable, the pattern, but it's, and I think that's crucial too, for people to pay attention to, that sometimes it's not about how much you can put on a track. Sometimes it's what you can take away. Sometimes it's about, and especially with the lyrical content here, you wouldn't have wanted the song to be too cluttered, right? Because this is a big deal. This is grandma. Like, you're writing a song, and I mean, like that back and forth, and of the choruses and the verses and the feel and the amplitude, the dynamics, all of that. There's so much tension that comes out of that, and it does make it driving on top of the time signature, and I resonated with this one a lot, and it's, I can't really articulate why I'm making this comment about, like, it's yet another level, but it feels that way. And let me go too. It's kind of hard to take them apart because you did put them together. And I'm curious, was that just, I have these two songs done, I'm going to put them out, or was there a specific reason that you paired those? Because they're very different musically. Like, they're not.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things going on there. So I actually released Let Me Go a month before Bloodlines, but there's this thing called the waterfall technique, where you release a single, and then the next single you release that one with the second single together, and so you get your plays on Spotify already have the other one, so you increase, which increases your reach and blah blah blah.
Look at you, social media maven. Look at you, just knowing all the tips and tricks. Okay. So that was a strategic move then, rather than a.
So yeah. So there's that. But as far as these two songs being released now, as opposed to other songs, is the unfortunate reality that I wasn't able to complete any other songs. I do have some songs that are half done, but because of my health situation, I wasn't able to finish them.
Yeah. Okay.
So I only had these two that had the vocals complete. Even Bloodlines, I had to record a lot of the lines with 2 tracks because I didn't have enough breath to complete the whole line. So that's the reality of why these 2 songs as opposed to other songs.
Okay.
But the waterfall technique, it's a good thing for bands to know.
It is a good thing. No, and I mean, look, it's it makes me so happy that you push out whatever you can, right? I mean, like, just A, that we're getting more music from you, but B, that being a lifeline, that's got to be incredibly frustrating when you can't do it in a given day or a given week, and it's just, I mean, and you're not singing in a light way either. I mean, you're really punching these vocally. And so, I mean, I can only imagine, even for someone who wasn't up against everything that you are cardiac wise, like that's just having the breath for that and really nailing it the way that you want to, that's no small feat. So, I mean, I really think, you'll come back when you finish those and you'll put out the whole thing as another LP. That's all. This will just be the little preview that we got of these 2 songs. So, I mean, is that also partly, whether you're home or not, and just your availability to get it? Because I'm not imagining you're bringing your whole studio to the hospital, or maybe you are by now. They probably should have a room for you, just with everything,
No, yeah. Part of the problem with me. Not problem with me, but so singing for me. When I started singing, I didn't realize this was what I was doing, but singing helps to avoid violent meltdowns. I am autistic, and I've always dealt with violent meltdowns.
I did not know that. We're autistic
Unfortunately,
too
yeah.
here. We had no idea.
So-
No, that's not unfortunate. We're okay. So, all right. So
Well-
that's also sensory regulating for you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, the unfortunate thing is the violent meltdowns.
Right. I didn't think you meant being autistic. No, I got
no,
you.
no.
That's it. And are they like emotionally based, sensory based, physically based? Are you not sure? Just kind of all together or?
That's definitely emotionally based for me.
Okay.
And so singing really uses up all that energy. It's like a perpetual motion kind of thing that
Yeah.
happens and starts whirring and
I got
getting
you.
bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
So that's the unfortunate thing about being in the hospital. I can't sing like that. I can't
Right.
sing that loud.
Right.
So that's one of the problems that I'm having. But
So what do you do though? Because that's not a small. I mean, as somebody who gets massive sensory overload myself, and that it's so hard to parse whether it's emotional or sensory sometimes, and they're not even necessarily different things half the time. But like, where do you put that? Because that's a lot of shit to not be able to vent in the way that you can most, pardon the word, but healthily do that. I mean, or more or most, regularly do that. That's a big, like, how do you off gas that if you can't be
Yeah.
singing?
I don't know. I don't know. It's day 31. I don't know.
At any moment you just fucking go like ham on the hospital room. It'll be like the most rock and roll thing ever. But no, but I mean, it goes somewhere. You're not
Well-
losing it in the room. So you've got to have
Well-
something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that it wasn't official that I was autistic until about 5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
So before that, they weren't violent meltdowns. It was just me losing it.
Right.
So I learned over 40 years or something like that to not lose it,
Right. Okay. Okay.
which ends up building up and making things
So it's
worse.
not so much that you're off gassing it. You're just kind of pushing it down, packing the suitcase a little. Okay. I gotcha. I
Just
gotcha.
waiting. Just
I
waiting.
gotcha. I gotcha. Okay.
So,
Can't they just wheel you outside for like 15 minutes so you could just fucking scream your head off in the parking lot? Like, you wouldn't be the first person to do that in the hospital parking lot, trust me. So, I mean, I'm only half kidding, really. I mean, like,
no, I might.
yeah.
They do. They have started letting me go outside, so they do wheel me outside.
Okay.
Because now it's spring and it's warmer.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's the whole embarrassment thing of yelling. But they might get to the point where I have no option.
Have somebody drive up, get in the car for 5 minutes, and I'm not even kidding, because I know what that need feels like. It's an itch you can't. It's like a splinter in your brain. You gotta do it. So I'm like sitting here going like, we gotta find Geoff a way to just like, fucking. Yeah. So I mean, because that's not a. I mean, people who aren't on the spectrum don't get that. That like it's not just something you can control. It's not something you can just sort of wish away. Like it's there. It's pressure that builds. So I feel you on that. We're gonna have to. I don't know. We're gonna have to find something. We're gonna have to do something, or maybe you'll just start investing in stocks, and then you could just tell people you're yelling about the stock market.
South on in April of 142!
That seems to be an socially acceptable form of screaming or whatever. But okay, so you need music. You need it. That makes a lot. Of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and it's not only hyperfixation for me. It has been for 40 some odd years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's emotionally necessary.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's so funny where like, some people will be like, why does a diagnosis actually matter? But understanding why you do the things that you do, like it made my life make so much more sense to me, where I was like, oh, I'm not this, that, whatever. I'm this, and oh, I get it now. It's like the end of The Sixth Sense. You go back and you're like,
yeah.
Oh, I get it. He was autistic the whole time. So yeah, I feel you deeply on that. I didn't know that about you, but hey, we're buddies in yet another way. But so okay, so you have these two songs. There would have been more situationally you couldn't get that done. But so let's move into Echoes a little bit, because again, I do want to touch on at least a little bit of each album, and you got to let me know how you're feeling when you get tired, all that good stuff. Okay. And then I am going to ask for the jumping jacks later. That's a key segment. Decided to start that now. It just came into my head, but I feel like we could just get up and just for like 20, 25 minutes, do the jumping jacks. I could absolutely not do that myself. But so, okay. So, I mean, the album starts off on this very cool note. Okay. Bring Down the Sun. Now, that guitar has a real Middle Eastern feel to me, but is that just the way that you're playing it? Are you good?
I think it's just the way I'm playing it.
Okay. And I because it just has that, and I'm always drawn into that. I love that feel. It's so mysterious and it's so ominous to me. So, okay, but you're
well. I mean, the thing is that so with Titanosaur, my whole thing with Titanosaur starting it was that I was trying to get away from this industrial goth thing that I was doing before.
Right.
Which was just really very serious and dark and brooding.
Right.
And I wanted to do something more fun and playful. So
I just love that Titanosaur is more fun. Now, this isn't Ray Gun Girls that you're talking about, is it?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, yeah. Because I mean, I see seeds of Titanosaur in that, but it is definitely more goth. It's like really dark and so.
Yeah, exactly. There were definitely things that were more heavy metal and I've been releasing them as Titanosaur, also some of them.
Oh, okay.
Songs.
Yeah.
But
so this is your lighthearted musical romp, Titanosaur.
Exactly. But as I've been in the punk stoner doom genre, I've listening to all these other bands. I've noticed what I was doing with the Ray Gun Girls wasn't necessarily not this stuff.
Right.
So that's when I started letting my goth side come in, and that's where Bring Down the Sun came in.
Yeah.
That's my goth thing where I just again pick a tempo, put a beat down, and then just use a guitar that has a lot of echo. And see what comes out.
But so see that's very interesting to me, because again, this theme of your being driven really by rhythm, rhythm and time signature and rhythm guitar, and it makes so much sense to me, because I think it's funny, when I listened through to Ray Gun Girls, I could tell it was, I mean, obviously for a variety of reasons, I could tell it was you, but it is a different project, and that's always interesting to me when you have one person that's driving the bus, and they're doing two things where it's like, okay, this is not, like I was just interviewing Henrik from Into Elysium, and it's the same kind of thing. He's like, well, there's the stuff I do as Into Elysium, but then there's the stuff I do under my name, and it's like, well, it's technically all you, but it's not the same thing. The project means something different. It sounds different. And I love that. There's something so fascinating about that to me, that one person can have these different buckets they need to put things in. So you've decided to just not, is it like, okay, I don't have to keep these elements out because this is Titanosaur? You're just saying, you know what, fuck it. I'm like, this is what the song needs and I'm going there. And if it sounds more Ray Gun Girls, who gives a shit? Okay.
Exactly. Part of the thing with the Ray Gun Girls was that I put myself into a box early on when I started the band with my friend. There was a specific idea.
Okay.
That's what it needed to be. And so I kept that going for 10 years or whatever.
A long time. Yeah.
So, it was a box that was really stifling. So realizing that the doom genre had a lot of goth in it.
Yeah.
And just saying, okay, well, I guess there's no limits for Titanosaurs is a great thing. And of course, my wife said, well, duh. Because she's always been baffled.
She's probably not autistic, though. Because you set a rule for yourself and that's it. Like, that's the way that it is. So like, you can't, but I love that though, because like, it sounds like you weren't putting Titanosaur in a box, but there was like a box you felt like you couldn't go into. So you were still closing yourself off from things that you could access. And maybe that's what I'm hearing too in the more recent stuff, that melding of worlds a little bit, or blending, where like at least one corner of the box is open, you know. And I like that first song. I mean, you know, and bring down the sound. Like a first song on an album, whether it's an EP, LP, whatever, it's key, right? Like, because you've got like 30 seconds to get to people, and if they're not into it, your whole album is done, right? And so there's so much atmosphere in that opening, like 16, right, where you're just like, oh, you know. And because it doesn't sound just like everything else, that not that everything that you do sounds the same, but you know what I'm saying, because there is different there are different elements to it that's engaging too, right? But you got to think, maybe this is the first thing anybody's ever heard you do. So was that comfortable, like saying, okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and put this in and I, you know, screw it? Or were you like, I don't know.
No, yeah, exactly. I was worried, especially putting it as the first song.
Okay.
But when I'm putting an album together, I get help from a few different friends as to what the order should be.
Yeah,
The
that's
order of the
true.
songs is very important. It's
Yeah.
not
Oh
just
yeah.
put 'em however
Random.
you
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
want. Even though somebody might be listening to just one or two tracks here and there, but the order of the songs is important.
Yeah.
And so I was worried about having that be the first song that people heard. And then when the album came out, that was a song that everybody really latched onto. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That's handy. You got a screaming endorsement that it was absolutely okay to push into that box a little bit. I like, pardon the expression, but yeah, no, I really, and I that has a little bit of a, and again, I always make sure to mention, when I make any kind of a comparison or association, it's always positive, and I never mean it's derivative, but like, I got some serious Enter Sandman vibes from that song, you know, and that's a song that I love. So, I mean, I just, you know, and then you've got this section in there where it gets, again, what I would call kind of spacey and a cappella, and like, and then these big drum, and there's just that you said it about dynamics, that's something you always pay attention to. And I, you know, I was 3 or 4 songs in and I was like, okay, this guy gets it with dynamics, because that's something that a lot of musicians miss, and it handicaps their songs when they don't pay attention to it, because eventually your ear just goes, okay, like I get it, you know, I've heard it, it's the same thing, you know. And punk, I think, is tricky, because you really don't have that with, like, punk is at 11 from the first second to the last second of the song, and you're there, you know. And so putting that together with like a more stoner or doomy kind of feel, where it's not that, you know, but it might be that, but like slowed way down, you know. And you really have this, you're dancing in the middle there across these different genres. And so I wouldn't say that you're doing anything where I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, like, there are songs you could put on and skip to any point in the song and it sounds like you didn't skip it, you know. And there's something kind of neat about that. But like, I love when I'm listening through and I'm like, oh, okay, now we're here. Now we're doing this with the verse. Okay, now the bridge is here, and now the drums are completely different. Or now, you know, and again, I love all that. I love all of that dynamic, because it keeps me interested, you know. And so I guess I want to ask, since you were nervous about trying this out, where it was a little bit Ray Gun girlish, you know, and you were nervous about it, how did you land on that being the first song? Was it just people were like, you got to do it because the song is so great? Or like, were you like, fuck it, let me just try it? Like, because that's a risk to take in the first place. And then to put it first, I could see that just flipping you out, but you did it. So why'd you do it?
Well, I trust, I trust my friend George, and he's the one that I always ask for first about the order of songs. So there was that.
Okay.
And then there was that I kept telling myself, my whole thing is that I need to grow a little bit as I go, not be stuck in one spot. So this definitely shows a little difference from before. So let's just do it.
Good for you. No, and I'm so glad that you got that good feedback, because it was smart. It's a very arresting beginning to the album, you know. And then I mean, you've got Free Your Mind, which is great. That's I get Big Alice in Chains, I get Sabra Zombie in there or whatever. But like, The Ghosts Are Calling, that's a great song, dude. Now, Anthony DeFilio is somebody, like, talk to me about Anthony a little bit, because he's on there too. And I mean, like, this one is like, I love how sludgy it is, and it's just so heavy, and it's so like it. But the guitar and like, yeah, talk to me about the song. Talk to me about Anthony and like his part in all of that, and a little backstory there.
Sure. So I met Anthony a few years ago before I did the EP. Um, the Into One New EP.
I'm glad you said it because I didn't want to be the first one to pronounce it.
So I met him a little before I recorded that
Okay.
EP. And I'm not breaking any confidence or anything. He's an autistic musician. That's where I met him in an autism group. And I said, hey, he's a lead guitar player, so I asked him if he wanted to play on one of those songs.
Yeah.
And he said yes, and it was fantastic what he did on that song. So I finally had a song that needed a solo, and I couldn't think of anybody else, so I asked him for this one, and he said sure. So he did it again. He's also in a heavy band, Spiritual Chaos in Florida, and they've really started making some noise there in the past few months. So
it's a great, and that solo, there's something very 80s about it, and like to me that's a very high compliment. Like I love the big screaming, just like arena rock kind of, but in the context of that song where it's slow and it's heavy and it's buzzy and whatever, and then you have just this brightness up and again, that's you and the dynamics, right? It needs, now I mean, when you're putting your songs together, are you kind of puzzle piecing it? And I don't mean in like the stupid fucking autistic puzzle piece way, I hate that shit, but like, are you kind of going, okay, you know, because you said you listen back, you'll change if the bass is going to clash with the vocals, is going to clash with the drums, fine, totally get that. But like, do you listen and go, I need something, you know, like when somebody's cooking and they're like, this needs a little acid or whatever. Like, is that kind of how it is with you, where you're like, it's missing something? Or are you more likely to throw the kitchen sink at it and then pull stuff out? Like, are you more of an adder, a subtractor, or is it both?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Definitely, there have been songs where just one section just totally does not work and I have to rewrite it.
Okay.
Like in the song Dissolve, I think that happened in that one. It took a couple of rewriting sessions for that. But I don't know guitar. I don't know music theory, but I think
a lot of musicians don't. But yeah,
I think I changed key in the bridge, the solo section. It seems maybe.
I'm trying to remember if there's a modulation there. Yeah,
because it goes from
yeah, I think you do. That sounds right to me. I mean, I remember songs, but I don't know that I have that exact level of detail. But no, I mean, but it's so. I mean, I'm assuming did he just write that? You sat him down and you were like, "This needs a solo. Do it." How much direction did you give him in that? Because it's perfect for the song. So I'm just wondering, like, you know.
Yeah, for people who are giving me guitar solos, generally the only direction I give them is around where I think it should be, and then they send me something and I say, all right, that's perfect, but maybe a little bit more over here, or keep this hanging out a little further. Like on the Run with Anthony, he sent it to me and I said, and I listened to it and I was like, this needs to be shifted earlier. And so I had to get his approval, and he was fine with it, because it sounded so much better when it was shifted. So yeah, that's what I do. But I always talk with the guitar. I'd never do anything that the soloist doesn't want or anything like that. So.
No, but okay. So, but you do, and it's, see, that's interesting that you could say, you know what, I love it in and of itself, but not here. It needs to go here. And like that's the, you know, you are obviously being pretty analytical at that point, going, you know what, or is that more of an intellectual decision or like a visceral one where you're like, I just feel like it should be shifted up, or I feel like this should be longer. Like, is it, I don't know. Like I know most people might not be curious about stuff like that, but I love that kind of thing, like the thought process into it, because that's a, you could have probably plopped it anywhere and it would have been fine, but you knew it needed to be there and not there. So like how did you come to that?
Well, yeah, so that's one of the problems, that I can spend hours and hours just changing something by 1 decibel.
Okay.
People might not necessarily be able to tell the difference,
Okay.
but I can when I'm listening to it, and I want to enjoy the songs that I write.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
why, yeah,
Well, it would bug you, right? Because you'd
yeah,
be like, you
yeah.
know, like I've done that where I've recorded things and I'm like, I can hear that I'm very slightly sharp somewhere or very slightly flat somewhere. Or I came in just a little ahead or just a little behind the beat, and like no one else will ever either notice or care. But it drives me mad, you know. So I completely endorse that. You got to get it the way you want it. It's your baby. This is your project. So no, but that, I mean, that song has so much going on, and I love the variety, even just among the first 3 tracks on that album. You know, you're showing us different pieces of you, right? And so then, you know, Firestarter again, I get Metallica. I'm Still Here. Love that song. Now that's a, you know, that's a little more, that's a softer lyrical side of you, a little bit, maybe. It's still very, you know, heavy, but I also feel like there's like a little bit of blues in this song too. There's like a slightly bluesy feel.
Yeah, actually, the if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I played that song. I try to play the songs again and again so I don't forget them. But
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, I started it as sort of just a blues riff.
Yeah.
In mind.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that might be
I
where
could
it
see
comes
that.
from.
Yeah, I could see that. No, that makes a lot of sense. But it's so, I mean, again, just I when something is slow and heavy and just sort of like dug in like that, you know, I love having that bluesy feel because it changes the feel of the song for me. You know, it makes it something slightly different, you know, and I don't necessarily think of blues and like more of a metal going together, but I mean, everything fundamentally kind of comes back to the blues. So I guess you could talk about it that way. But so, I mean, and then again, you know, you have other songs in the interim there. You mentioned Dissolve. Now, is it Kazuki was on that song? So is this another, like, who's that and how did you meet? And because that one's like there's some psychedelic stuff going on in there, and there's like it's again really gritty. But like, what was the collab there for that one?
So I actually met Kazuki in a Discord server.
Okay.
This autistic musician.
I'm sensing a theme. Yeah.
he runs a group called Bandless, basically for one man band kind of things.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So people who don't have a band who record music.
Yeah.
And so that's where I met Kazuki, and he's in New Zealand. That's one of the great things about technology. You know, I can get somebody who
That's
lives in New
right.
Zealand.
You would literally have never met or even known about. Yeah, right on your own. Yeah, very cool.
So he did the solo for "What's Your Pleasure" first, and that experience for me and for him was great. So I was like, okay, he's much more of a sludgy kind of guitar player, so he was much more excited about playing Dissolve. So yeah, again, it was just that kind of thing where he played something and I said, all right, we need a little bit more here. And then I actually had to edit part of his guitar solo a little bit, just so it would fit where there's a dropout.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, but that's how that worked.
So so it's interesting to me that you only bring in a couple of people a couple of times. Like you're not constantly, you know, I think of like a Nightfall band where Keith has, you know, everything he does is like a collab, right? Basically. So like what makes you decide this is something where I need to bring in somebody? Is it just there's something you feel like you're not going to do the way you want to do it, or you're just looking for another lens on the song, or how do you decide where to put somebody else and when you don't?
It's a tough call because I don't think anything I do is right. So I could ask somebody to do everything.
Okay.
But it depends on availability. Sort of. No, I mean, like I said, when I finish recording a song, I listen to it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's also when I decide if I need to have a guitar solo. And sometimes.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes, like Eater of Death, originally when I first wrote it, I thought there would be a section for a guitar solo, but after listening to it, I was like, no, this is fine.
Didn't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like on this album, the last song in the Echoes, I said I have an idea for the guitar solo here, so I had no problem doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of just who I'm talking to at the time and what I'm listening to
Okay.
that decides whether I ask somebody or not.
Oh, but so that's interesting. So you don't start out going, okay, I have an idea and I'm going to be bringing someone in for this. That's a game time decision of like, you know what, I need something here and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to, okay, that's very cool. Cause you like a lot of songs will be built around a solo, right? You know, that's just like the thing. I was like, okay, well, we know we're going to do, and I always appreciate that any music that doesn't follow, and I have no problem with standard structure, you know, verse, chorus, like I'm fine with that. But like, you know, and then where you might necessarily expect a solo, and there isn't always one, you know, and it, not every song needs one. Not every song needs everything, right? So, but I mean, but then, and you mentioned another one of my absolute favorites on the album, In the Echoes, because what is up with that kind of like marimba Latin? So I love that, like that, because I'm going, Geoff, what the fuck? Like now we're, and I mean that in a great way. Like I love being surprised at the end of an album, you know, like now we're bringing in something different because that, I mean, the guitars, there's so much distortion, you know, and the drums are really intricate in that one too, right? So I mean, to sit there and kind of add that element of, you know, almost the Latin kind of flavor, which I don't know, there's a lot that's suggested in that. Like, was that, when did that come in? Did you like, I want to put something like that in there, or was that something you added after you had heard it a bunch of times?
Yeah, no, it was something I wanted to do because I had done something like that, which was very rhythmic on the Absence of Universe album, Conspiracy.
Yeah, but that's more African though, rather than Latin. Or at least I think of it that way. It has that, there's a different sort of feel to me, maybe.
It's the Latin percussion setting. So,
oh, are they both the same thing? Really? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
just different tempos, different different instruments.
That's very cool because I would not have realized that was the same thing. Okay, nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Okay, so you knew you wanted to do something like that. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the layering. But I knew I wanted to do something rhythmic. So, what I do in that case is I put the two drum parts together. So I put the drum part and then the Latin percussion on top of it.
Okay.
And then I start recording because that gives a different feel to what I want to play.
And you really have to dance in and out of that because, again, to give everything its own sonic space when you've got that combination of things, like there's not a lot, like the bass has to be very careful where it is and it isn't. Like there's a lot of math in that, you know, and just correct placement in that. But it's, I mean, and again, it's so cool to me how differently Echoes begins and ends. Like it's really different, you know, and strong too, you know, and again, the chorus for Into the Echoes, or In the Echoes, it kind of, it blows up a little bit. It opens up a lot, you know, and I like that at the end of an album where you're just like, oh, you know, okay, like I listened to the whole thing and like I'm just in it, you know, and you're like, whoa, you know, but to start kind of quiet and you build and you have a real there's a cadence to all of your albums, you know, it's not just, you know, 49 minutes of you know, you're taking us up and down, and you know, we're playing with different kinds of rhythm and percussion and tempo and time signature, all this other stuff, and it's a lot to get done in. I mean, it's a longer album, but it's you know, there's still, I appreciate the economy of what you do, you know, that packed into every song, and you're not sitting there doing like 13-minute songs, you know, these are pretty, you know, 4-minute-ish, you know, some 3.5, some 5, whatever. But like, you know, you're packing a lot into a pretty small amount of time. So, I mean, when you finished that, was it like, because again, you're writing most of that in the hospital, right? So like letdown, catharsis, both, like, where, you know, because that's, I mean, that came out in September, right?
Yeah,
so,
that came out in September.
Okay. So
to me, the album is complete when I do the artwork and finalize the artwork.
Okay.
Because I get the order of the songs and then I listen to them in that order over and over again to see what kind of feeling I
Okay.
get for the artwork.
Okay.
So once the artwork is done and I have a whole finished package, then it is a sigh of like, okay.
Okay. So it's the artwork that does it for you. That's it. But that makes sense though, because that's, I know when people are like, and I know what the image is going to be and I know whatever, and it's like, now it's real. So that makes sense to me. But I mean, and did you have everything written in those 5 weeks, or was it just most of it? Or because that's a lot to write. And I mean, and that was at the beginning of 23, right? That you started. So I mean, 9-ish. Well, by the time you got out, I guess it was more like 7 or 8 months. But like, and you were also in the middle too in the hospital, right? So you had
Yeah, I was in the
interruptions. You got
hospital.
that done
Yeah.
fast, all things considered. Like, really, if you think about it, I mean, because what there are 10, 11 tracks on the album. I think like that's a lot to if you had uninterrupted time, it might be different, but still. So like, what was that? Was that frustrating to
But
start and stop, or how was that process for getting it all out?
yeah, no, because I don't start thinking about an album. I just start writing the songs.
Songs, okay.
So when I was in the hospital, I couldn't actually write the whole songs all together
Yeah.
because I don't know how to do the drums on the iPad. So it was basically riffs and some lyrics.
Okay.
So that was maybe 4 songs, 5 songs
Okay.
while I was in the hospital. And then I went home, and yeah, so I have 2 or 3 hours every single day where I can do stuff, and
Yeah.
I use it. I use it to put together the songs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's usually once around like after I had released, I think What's Your Pleasure, The World Is on Fire. I don't remember which came first.
Okay.
That was when I decided, all right, this has to be an album. And that's when I started collecting all the songs
I was
together.
going to ask you, like, how do you determine, because you do have so many songs, is it just sort of like, all right, I got 10 or whatever, I'm going to put it together? Or was it doesn't sound like that from what you just said. It sounded more like, wait, okay, no, these need to be heard together. That's a different
Yeah,
decision.
yeah, it's well, part of the problem with the Reagan Girls by the end was like I was just writing songs and I didn't really have any feeling. And I
Okay.
was just releasing a song, just to release stuff.
Okay.
And I started feeling like that when I released whatever the third single was from from the Echoes album. And I said to myself, I can't feel like this with Titanosaur. So this
Okay.
needs to be an album.
Okay.
So that's where.
Oh, I see. Okay. So because it's not a concept album by any means, but like
No.
the songs do all work very well together, even though you change things up a lot and there are a lot of different flavors in there. So that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I could completely see that, where if you're just sort of factory releasing things over and over and over again, and especially if you take the heart out of it, right? If like, and I imagine after 10 years of living in the box, as you describe it, like you're going to burn out on anything at that. I mean, even 10 years of great stuff, after a while, you're kind of like, okay, but if you felt limited, then that's gonna spiral pretty fast. I mean, again, that's a tremendous length of a project, though. A decade, like that's no joke. But so, okay, so you had Echoes was September of 23. So was Absence, that was like February. That was a long.
Yeah, Absence of Universe was like 3 years ago now.
Yeah, I want to say
In 2022.
Yeah,
at the beginning of 2022.
So you had a pretty big hiatus between albums.
Well, there was the No One Home, which came out December of 2022.
Of course, that was right. So, but you had 2 albums come out in 1 year, right? So you've got yeah. So right. So it was like, yeah, right. I remember actually. I think it came out on my mom's birthday. But yeah. So like you had December of 22. You had February of 22. And then obviously 23 was writing Echoes. So like,
yeah.
When you put together No One Home, you've got, was the decision to make that an EP a decision, or was it, okay, you're nodding.
Yeah,
that was always intended to be an EP.
Yeah, it was intended to be an EP. And then when I told the Fuzzy from the Swamp record label that I'm working with, he said, "This is an album." So I had to add like 2 more songs to it to make it a full actual album
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So
The
because
law. It was the law.
I need it to be worth what people are gonna pay for.
I
I
hear
mean,
you.
yeah, they're not paying. They're paying $5. I put them up for, I think.
Right.
But for me, it's got to be worth
It's
it.
not right. No, but that's fair. And I mean, musically too, because that again, another great album, and another really strong start. Like another really strong start. The title track is like, I got a little of oh, she just passed away like a year or two ago. The Cranberries.
Oh,
I got a little bit of a Cranberries feel, but like again, not like just a little, and I think mostly at the beginning, but then it really kind of morphs again. And the rhythms in that one, there was something unusual about them, as I recall, but I don't remember what it was. But good, unusual, like interesting, unusual. So what was I hearing there? What were you doing to us?
Yeah, so it's in. I think it's 5/4. So
Okay,
it's in 5/4, but the riff that I put over it for the verses
is not
is
right.
6/4 or
Okay,
something like that.
okay,
Um,
okay.
so yeah,
I re-listened to the probably the first minute and a half of that one like 4 or 5 times because my ear needed to find it. But I loved that. I was like, this is fucking weird, and I love like I couldn't figure out what was going on. How hard was it to line those up? That had to have been a pain in the ass. No?
not really. I actually do that quite often. Like in Let Me Go, I do that also at the end. The riff is a little different
But it's
time
not
wise, I
the
think.
whole thing, though. It's not the
Right, no, it's
whole.
not the whole thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, No One Home is another one of my absolute favorites to play
yeah,
and sing.
yeah. I can see that.
That one, for even though the lyrics aren't super like personal or emotional,
Okay,
when I sing that song, it really brings something up for me. I
okay.
don't know what. But yeah, I love playing that riff. Basically, the way I do it is because I'm doing this on GarageBand, so I'm watching how long it takes me to get back to the one while I'm playing the riff.
Okay.
So it takes. I do that a couple of times till I get used to it, so that I
Okay.
can get to the next section
Okay.
without messing up too
You're
much.
totally losing your place. Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah.
see. So you're like, okay, there it is.
Yeah,
There it
exactly.
is. Okay. So I mean, but that alone has to be sort of reigniting for you, after having, worked in that very enclosed space for so long, to be able to make decisions like that and play around like that. That's got to light your brain up, right? Because it's so different from what you spent so much time doing.
Yeah, exactly. The Reagan Girls was all 4/4. There was no
Nothing
way I
that
could do
was
anything else.
I didn't hear a single no. And again, not that there was anything wrong with that, but there's just there's an intricacy to what you're doing with Titanosaur, and I hear you playing. I don't mean literally playing the thing, but I hear you playing more. Like I hear you having fun, and there's like a lot of creative stuff, and I think you're challenging yourself in a different way, and that makes sense to me now in the context of just like, because I can, like I want to do something that's not what I was doing and that isn't so prescribed as what I was doing before. So like, did that freak you out when you started? Were you just like, I don't even know where to begin? Like, was it because Eat Me was first. I think that was the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That album is a trip. I love that one. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But yeah.
No. I one of the reasons I use different time signatures is so that I don't get bored.
Yeah.
That exactly that having to think about it and get something good out of it
Yeah.
works. Most of the time, there are a couple here or there that I've got put away that just don't excite me.
Haven't clicked yet.
But
Okay.
yeah, you haven't clicked. But yeah, it's more about just the freedom that I'm able to do whatever I want. So
Yeah.
I do that when I'm stuck.
Okay. Yeah. No, and it does come through, it does come through. And you had said earlier that you want to make sure you're growing with every new thing that you put out. And I hear that, because a long time ago, I would, when I started with this show, it was like, all right, do I start from the beginning, like the first thing that a band or a musician put out, and then work my way up? And I do that sometimes, but mostly I start recent and work backwards. And it's so interesting as a little kind of condensed time machine for me to be able to say, like, okay, here's where we are and here's where we started. And again, we were talking about No One Home, and I don't want to skip over that in absence. And, we got messages, and so we have a lot of stuff, but Eat Me, which again, just such a great title. Like that, like there's so much freedom in that album. You were clearly having so much fun, and I mean, like, I punk rock, like he just, I mean, were I to call any Titanosaur song kind of cute, that's a song. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way at all. I just mean like there's something just very playful and fun and pleasant about that. And it was so cool to hear you kind of come out of the gate just having a good time, and that was why when I went back further, and I think I listened to Ray Gun Girls last, it was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know any of the, the backstory, any of it in terms of just what you felt like you could and couldn't do. But I was like, yeah, it felt like almost, as I said, there were seeds in there, but you couldn't do all of the intricate time signature, tempo, rhythm, percussion playing around the way that you do. And so but like, Burn the Witches, another one like that. I got a big alt rock metal kind of feel from that, and like you clearly just went, oh, like I can do whatever the fuck I want here. So like, was that a quick one to put together? Was that just sort of like years of being constrained, kind of, you just, how many of those did you have before? Did you was it all brand new written after you decided to start the project?
Well, it was definitely quick to put together because exactly, it was just like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm looking at the tracks. There were 2 or 3 that were written before already. That were going to be Ray Gun Girl songs.
Oh, but so then the bulk of it that was new. Okay.
Yeah. The bulk of it's new. What was new?
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the track listing now. I think 3 maybe were Ray Gun Girl songs.
Okay.
That just didn't fit Ray Gun Girls.
Okay.
All right.
They would have been Ray Gun Girl songs, but they weren't, so they're not. Okay.
Yeah, and that's also why I called it "Eat Me." I'm like, so it's like it's
I
definitely
was wondering.
darkness.
Yeah, I was wondering. It was that definitely. But again, there's so much. I think really the right word for it is there's just so much playfulness in that album. Like there really is, and you just. It's like a kid in a candy store vibe, right? Like you go in and it's just, and now I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to do this, and now, and I mean, stuff that's more rock, stuff that's more metal, stuff that's more punk, stuff that's more, and I feel like I hear all of your influences come to bear right away with that album, right? But so then, like by the time you got, and we'll come back to No One Home, but like by the time you got to Messages, then you had a couple years of sinking into Titanosaur, knowing what the project really was. Like, did you feel like, first of all, before we get to that, did you feel like when you put Eat Me out, that's not a way I should, when you released Eat Me, did you feel like, okay, this is it, this is Titanosaur, like now I know what it is? Or was it a little, okay, you did like you had your voice? Okay.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I mentioned my wife earlier. For her, the whole time was like, why are you stuck in a box? I don't get it. Because I would write songs and I'd be like, but that's not Ray Gun Girls. It's like, so when I finally did that, so she's just like, thank you, finally.
Marriage.
Yeah.
You dope. I've been telling you for like 10 years now, but yeah. Okay. But yeah, well, I mean, I guess, you know what? That's a really good question though. Because it's not like you were locked into some contract and you were, beholden and you had sold your soul to a label, and like when I mean, and again, I don't want to be indelicate relative to because it wasn't a solo project, obviously, but like, at what point did you start to go, maybe this isn't serving me anymore? And then, like, why did you, if you want to answer that, what made you stay in the box? Since you obviously knew you were in one, so did your wife.
There was some sort of. I did feel beholden to somebody.
Okay.
Because I started it with a friend of mine, Jamie, and when we went live, because it was going to be a studio project,
Right.
and when we went live, two of my friends didn't work out, didn't have good chemistry together,
Okay.
and so Jamie was the one that left. So I sort of felt like having to continue the band name, and we also
Okay.
it had been so long that been around. We recorded. We were on a label, independent label, for a little bit, and so it just felt like I had to keep it going because of all that history.
Okay. So there was a lot of obligation, and yeah, I gotcha. That makes sense because it was doing well. So I mean, at a certain but that's interesting because you still that wasn't enough to satisfy you, right?
Yeah. The last album I released with the Reagan Girls was Orphan in 2020, and putting out something new in April with the Reagan Girls. But
are you? You are in you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Releasing something new. Because another label picked it up. So
okay.
I'm feeling kind
pulling
of
you back in. They're pulling you back in. You're in the quicksand. The Ray Gun Girls.
Well, once the label said they wanted to release Reagan Girls as a different label, I said exactly that really loudly.
Dad, I was this close. I'd been
Fucking
out.
pulling me back in.
So so just to step aside from that, we'll get back to what you were saying. So is this new stuff that you've written?
So it's an EP. There are 3 songs that are just remixed, remastered, old ones.
Okay.
But there are three new ones.
Okay.
Because the electronic side, I'm still kind of wary about bringing in the drum samples and loops. I do bring drum samples every once in a while to Titanosaur, but I'm still kind of iffy on that. For myself, the weird rules I've written for myself.
That's how brains are. I totally get that.
So,
arbitrary, but binding because you had the thought. So I completely I understand. It is an interesting neurochemistry. It really is. I absolutely, totally get it. So okay, so that's an interesting little side note. I did not know that in weeks' time. By the time this airs, it will have come out already. People can go listen to that. More Ray Gun Girls. So okay,
Yeah.
but so you knew it was time to move on, even though you had that, sort of loyalty, that sense of obligation and history and all of that. So that explains the staying in the box part. But so, okay, you put out Eat Me, you're having a good time. You found your voice, where the project is beginning at least. And then obviously it's grown as you go. But so with Messages, writing process for that, that's a face. What's that about?
There are a lot of songs on there that I like. It just feels to me like a hodgepodge, and there are way too many songs on the album.
Really?
But
okay.
Yeah, for me. But I had released 2 in 2019, and the thing with that was that was a concept album that was dealing with my mom's death.
Okay.
So that I was worried about going back into the whole staying in the dark kind of brooding thing.
Right.
So I just recorded everything and just put it into that album, Messages.
Okay. So now to get to 2, and it's interesting for it. That is it's not a hard album to listen to. I don't mean it like that, but it's very raw, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes sense, obviously, given the subject matter. And I think that, again, the one that really always stands out to me on that one, as I mentioned, is Tired. And I'm wondering if there's a story behind that, because it is such an outlier, and it's almost got this kind of like little music box feel to it. And I there's a tenderness to that I was really compelled by. So like, what's the backstory for Tired?
I don't get much sleep. I sleep about 4 hours maybe a night.
Okay.
And that sort of started around then. And I was just exhausted, just tired of everything, tired of dealing with my mom's death thing was a whole big to do.
Okay.
So
That's a way to put it.
yeah, she and I don't never got along. I say don't get along because I'm through all the logical stuff that I have, I do believe in spirits and stuff like that.
Okay. So still,
So
it's still a present situation for you in some
she's
ways.
still an unfortunate presence.
Okay. Okay. But that right there, I mean, and again, without, delving into that any more than you want to, that's, losing someone is difficult enough. Losing someone when you have a really complicated relationship is harder still. And then when that's somebody that you're related to by blood, that's a whole other, it's not even a level. It's like a whole other Dante's, circles kind of situation there. So I can imagine the exhaustion. I can imagine.
And not only that, but when the passing of said person still leaves tons of stuff around to deal with.
Okay. So it's not even like an ending. It's just like an appendix of crap that you're okay. I gotcha. So there was nothing. The way that you described it then was very whole big thing. That sounds very apt. Okay. So you had a lot of processing to do then. And I there is definitely a different feel to that album. It doesn't sound like Ray Gun Girls. It doesn't sound like the rest of Titanosaur. That makes a lot of sense to me now. So you was the process of writing that? Was that to process? Was it just? I mean, how did you come to that album?
So I don't really remember because I don't remember that period.
Yeah, you probably. Yeah, I could understand fuzzing that out. Yeah.
All I know is that I wrote the songs and then realized that they could be put together as a concept.
I gotcha.
So that's the order of those songs to make it a concept album. That's the order.
Okay. So not such a conscious process then, or plan. That was just more you discovered what it was. I gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Dancing past that then and getting back to messages. So you use the word hodgepodge, and I don't get the sense it's necessarily in the most positive light. So like, what were those all written? Were those all written for that album, or was it some of it older, some of it newer? Because you do. I think it's such a strong album, though. I'm so surprised that I know you said there are a lot of songs that you like, but I mean, like, there are a lot of really strong songs on that album. So what's the hodgepodge business about? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I was excited. So I had finished, so I did 2, and then I was like, all right, I don't want to get stuck in this. What is Titanosaur? And reevaluating, reassessing.
Yeah, okay.
And so I was just writing. And that's where all of this came from. And I was excited. I was excited about all the songs I was writing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was starting to, for myself, even though this might sound kind of egotistical, I was realizing that these are really good songs.
Yeah.
That I'm writing with Titanosaur.
Yeah.
So they need to be heard, out there more than just what I've been doing.
Okay.
So that's when I sort of started stepping up things to business-wise as well.
Okay.
So that's why these just got thrown together, and to me, it's a hodgepodge because there's so many.
Yeah. Okay. But you don't feel like it doesn't work together, do you?
No. Again, the songs are all put in an order specifically thought about.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, it would be a really super tight album if there were maybe just 10.
Okay.
And then three of those songs would be put on the next album.
Something else.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm curious, you don't even have to name them, but do you know which songs those 3 would be? Because I have a feeling you probably do. Like, would you say like, okay, because I mean, like, again, it's Dream is like, I love the rhythms of that one. You've got Deceiver, that's got such a build. I think
and those are the Dream and Deceiver are the ones I made videos for too. So
right, but I mean, like the 13 though, I think short. instrumental, short
Yeah.
relative to the other stuff, but like such a almost like a Cure feel to that one, and like really got me. Like I re-listened to that one a lot, and it's just, when I have a lot of songs for a episode to research, I'm always like, okay, I gotta move on, you know. But I was just like, I there was something about that really spoke to me. Ironically, even though it was instrumental. So like, I mean, I'm just trying to think like what you would even take out of that. You know, like I didn't feel like any of them were unnecessary. You know, I mean, like, and again, Strong, Monster, and Forevermore, and The Noise, and like these are like, there were so many songs on that album that I just was like, wow. And it felt like fun, but it felt like more intentional fun.
Yeah,
I don't know if that
for
makes
me,
sense.
yeah, for me it'd be Children, which is the fourth track, maybe Kneel, which is the eighth track. Those could move, and the first one, Absolution. Okay. Those three would be the first that I would just take out.
Really, the first track, and yet it ended up as the first track. So then, do you feel like it's not necessarily representative of the album?
To me, the song itself is not finished. It feels like it needs more finessing.
I am stunned that you let it out then. How did that happen? Something sneaked past you? You just
it was that whole just
get it out and okay. I really didn't. I mean, because again, it does represent Titanosaur. Like I definitely, you know, and it's a nice, good, fast song to start the album on. And like, I don't know. For me, I guess I experienced the album different. And I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter what I think, but I mean, like I enjoyed watching you do all of those different things, you know, and having them together. And especially coming off of 2, where not only was everything more in a different vein, clearly very different, but you know, where there was more of a story concept to it, you know, where this was just, you know what? This is what I got. This is who I am. This is all the different stuff that I could do. Would you ever go back and do that? Would you ever go back and pull things out and put those 3 on a different album?
You know, I've been thinking about the whole thing. I mean, I'm you know, by no means a huge artist, but like a compilation kind of thing, since I've got so much music already.
You really do.
That has been a thought eventually, maybe.
I think that's a great idea. No, because again, I mean, like and I'm curious, would you do things on that album where it shows more of a breadth of what you do, or would you keep it a little bit more like, this is the stuff that I think? Because I mean, how do you even pick what's representative of Titanosaur? Because it's so many different things, right? Like what when you think compilation, even loosely, what vision do you have for that? Or is it just like a vague notion at this point?
Yeah, right now it's just a big notion. I mean, specifically talking about this album, I picked Messages and I believe Deceiver. I'm surprised that so many people like Dream Unrealized. That's one of those songs that I'm like, but everybody likes it, so I'm all right. You know.
So you're surprised. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm surprised that you're surprised, because I'm one of the people that really likes it. So I don't.
Most people like it, and I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Is it just that it doesn't resonate with you somehow, or do you have that same idea that it's not that it's unfinished to you? It doesn't light you up in that same way, I guess.
Yeah. It doesn't. When I'm singing it, it doesn't. There's nothing really deep that I can connect with other than just singing it.
Okay. And that seems to be where you connect, because you said when you sing No One Home, you know, even though it's not necessarily particularly deep or meaningful lyrically for you personally, there's something about it that just brings something out in you. So it sounds to me like you relate to your music differently when it comes to singing it than making it. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you know, a lot of the songs I write for myself, like to give myself inspiration or to keep myself from getting too depressed.
Okay.
So yeah, lyrically, if I have a connection with it, then it definitely means more to me and feels different than the other songs.
Okay, so it's specifically lyrically not
Yeah.
because I know sometimes when I'm singing, and it's covers, usually, but sometimes when I'm singing, it might not even be that. There's just something about the melody line, the vocal melody, where I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about right now, but there's just something about getting to sing this line, this melody that makes me. But for you, it's specifically connecting to the lyrics. That's
Well,
an important distinction.
well, it might be, it's the whole thing around the lyrics. So exactly the melody line of
Okay, so it's
how
the
the
whole
lyrics
thing.
are. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, so all right, so Messages is your hodgepodge album then. Okay, so then I'm trying to. Why don't we bounce back to No One Home then? So again, we talked about Eater of Death. That's still astounding to me that was something you wrote before you knew that it would be applicable to you. But another one that I really love, This Isn't How. Okay, again, I get more like the tribal tones on that. Well, maybe it's all the Latin. It might all be that same button now. I don't even trust anything anymore. The cake is a lie. But like, I love that tribal feel to it. I love that there is again sort of like that Funhouse, Metallica, Enter Sandman kind of feel. And again, it's not that it sounds like that. It's just I get the same. You know how it is. You get patterns in your brain and so you know what I'm talking about. Like the colors are the same. But I mean, it's that, so the build on that song is killer. It's just so, again, ominous. It's the word that but like in this exciting kind of way, not like a doomy kind of way.
Well,
if that makes any sense, like an exciting ominous thing. I don't really know how to articulate it better than
this is specifically an angry song. I wrote it angry. I wrote it to be angry. It's a pissed off song because I'm saying this isn't
how it's
how
supposed to
I
be.
was
Yeah.
supposed to,
Yeah.
this isn't my life how it was supposed to be.
Like what the
So,
fuck universe, like really, and it reads and that and even the way that you get to the end of that song, that it's big, and then it sort of just shrinks into itself and then it's out. There's something so like about that, and I feel that song. That is, I mean, that anger, but it's not just blind anger. It's exactly what you just said. Like, this isn't how it was supposed to be. This isn't how my life is supposed to look. This isn't how I'm supposed to have to manage my days and spend my time and whatever. And Jesus, after everything that you've been through, I get that, and I imagine it's not even just the health stuff. It's probably bigger than that too.
yeah. I mean, this was written after, but yeah, financially, everything. I mean, we've gone through a lot of stuff, my wife and myself. So yeah, but yeah, it's just this isn't how the lyrics. I think I wrote the lyrics during one of my hospital stays, one of my many.
Well,
I'm pretty sure.
But I think one of the beautiful things about that album is that it holds your battle cry and your kind of, I don't want to demean it by saying like why me cry, but like your angry cry, like they're on that same album, and I think that's perfect actually, because it makes the whole thing genuine for me. It's real that there are two sides of that you can sit there, and some days you're an eater of death and some days you're a this isn't how, and sometimes probably in the same day, and that's that's to me the heart of Titanosaur, that you're going to show us everything that you are, right? That musically, lyrically, genre wise, rhythmically, just, concept, thematically, whatever, that like, this is the voice, and it's complex. I mean, you have a lot of shit, and this project is you, right? So, I mean, the project by nature is going to be complex, and especially given that you kind of ran screaming away from being penned in for so long, we were going to get that full force. But I feel like this album is where, because again, Eat Me, super fun, super free, super just like, yeah, we're here, like I'm here, and it's a bit, and then 2, obviously very different vibe as we've discussed, and Messages kind of just, okay, wait, this is all of it. And I feel like with No One Home, you kind of crystallized the thing, you know, and I think that that's a wonderful progression to hit over the course of 4 or 5 years, you know what I mean, including Echoes, and then now it's more like 6. But I mean, do you feel like the project is evolving in the way that you want it to? Are you satisfied with it? Or are there things that you still feel like you want to add, change, take away, say, not say? Like, I mean, where are you with the state of Titanosaur at this point as we kind of come back into the present?
Yeah, no, I definitely like the way it's going. I like the music I'm making still. I'm still having fun with it.
Good.
The new songs that I have are really exciting to me that I haven't quite finished yet. Those are exciting. So as long as the music stays exciting, which is now my my
Kind of your
line.
yeah, exactly. It's your guiding. Yeah. You still enjoy it. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad, because and I mean, I wonder if there's a point at which that would even stop, given that you can do whatever the fuck you want to do at this point. I can't see why it would. I mean, I know life is life, but
Yeah, I mean, for a second there, I know that people are really digging these two songs, but it kind of felt like I was just putting them out because I had to put something out.
you mean Bloodline and Let Me Go?
Yeah.
Okay. Really?
And I think that has to do with my perfectionism. That they're like, to me, Bloodlines needs a lot of more work. It's rough around the edges.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But I noticed that that's what's happening, and I said that to my wife.
Okay.
Got to move forward, because this is.
So, I mean, do you hear the song finished? It doesn't sound like, from what we've discussed, that you do. Like, you're not recreating a song that's just finished in your head and putting it out there. You're building it. So what do you feel like? I mean, is it that there are things that are missing in Bloodline, or there are things that you would just tighten up? Like, I mean, when you say rough around the edges, that's interesting to me, because I don't hear that, but I wish I could hear what you hear, you know, but like, if you can describe that to me a little bit, you know, like what would do you know what you would go in and do, or is it just a sense of, this isn't quite where I want it?
Well, yeah. It's stuff that I was working on, and then I was like, all right, I'm going into the hospital. I know I am. So we just got to put this and get it ready to
Okay.
release.
So you just didn't have enough time to sit with it and really, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the ride cymbal in I think it's the chorus is really loud, and I wanted to bring that down.
Okay.
I was trying to bring it down some before I stopped. Yeah, there's just a couple of guitar things here or there that, you know, I hear, but I know nobody else hears.
Okay. All right. So it's the nuanced stuff, the really granular nitty gritty. Okay. So I'm assuming then, when you get a chance and you're out and you're home and you can finish the rest of the songs and you put those back out, you're going to go back and tweak what you aren't happy with.
Yeah. And that's what I did with Let Me Go, actually. I released it, and then after releasing it, I was like,
yeah, like, I'm going to refine this. Okay.
And I changed a couple of things and then released it with Bloodline. So that's a little better copy.
Okay. So, I mean, as we begin to wrap up, then, what is next for Titanosaur? I know you are not in control of your own timing. Obviously, it's sort of up to your heart. But like, what beyond these? You know, how many songs is this going to be? A full LP when you put it out? The the Bloodline, Let Me Go. Like, when you put a collection together, so that's going to be.
Oh yeah, most likely. I put these out, and I was thinking, okay, I just need to put singles out here and there, and then I said that doesn't work for me. I need to work towards an album. Yeah. But before that, I actually am releasing a split EP, because it's digital, so split.
Okay.
With a band called Gorilla Wizard from, I think, Brooklyn or Long Island.
Okay.
So that's really exciting. They work really slow, so it's taken us like over a year.
Okay.
But the songs on that are really intense, just like musically, because they're more of a hardcore sludge kind of thing.
Okay.
So I wanted to kind of match that as much as I could.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. So, that's a different, I mean, yes and no, but like, that's a very specific pocket that you're in there. So and I could see you're enjoying that. where you do those little side things that give you other. Is there anything that you feel like Titanosaur can't be?
Can't be. I guess
Besides like
not
a
because
K-pop band. I mean, like, within the realm of what you do, I mean, like, is there anything where you feel like there are musical, muscles that you need to stretch, pardon the connective tissue, whatever, but like that you need to stretch that, you wouldn't feel like you could do as part of Titanosaur, or?
no, not that I
Okay,
feel I
good,
couldn't do.
good,
There,
good.
there are still things that need stretching, but yeah, no. I
Okay.
would love to have other guest vocalists come in.
Yeah.
I think I've only had one or two over the years, but yeah,
Okay. You want to do
I'd love
more
to
of
have.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're just going to keep writing and doing, and you've got the split EP. Do we know when that's coming? We don't know when that's coming out because it's
Well,
moving at its glacial pace, or?
they're hoping to have it done, and so we can release on the, because it's basically Titanosaur versus Gorilla Wizard. So
Oh.
we're hoping that coincides with the Godzilla King Kong movie on
Okay.
March 29th. So
Oh, so we're talking soon then.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think the odds on that are, Geoff?
Well, the
Not
last
holding your
I
breath.
heard was they were going to hear the masters on Monday. So
Okay.
hopefully,
Okay, but so that's a good sign if we're at that stage. It is conceivable. We will leave it as a distinct possibility, but so hopefully by the time this airs, it's been out and is already hugely successful. So you've got your split EP. Now, is it Gorilla the animal or Gorilla the fighter? The animal, I assume.
yeah,
Gorilla. Okay,
yeah,
Gorilla.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got the Gorilla Wizard, versus Titanosaur. That will be out when it's out, but hopefully soon. And then, do you have a sense of when you're going to put your next album for Titanosaur out, or is that
I
just sort
mean,
of up to the vagaries of time?
well, I am here in the hospital indefinitely, but hopefully that doesn't mean for too long.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so my guess, just throwing as a possibility, is probably in December. December seems to be a
Okay.
month when I release albums.
Yeah,
Um,
you do have a good track record, but I mean, so the indefinitely part. I mean, what determines that? Like, I mean, is it just how well you're feeling? Are they looking at like ejection fraction? Like, do you even know, like, when, do you know why it's indefinitely, or are they just kind of keeping you there hoping that, okay, I got you.
yes,
You don't need to
yes.
say that. We're good. It's
No,
fine. He needs to be there, people. And you do, you really do.
no,
But
it's if I'm not in the hospital, then I'm level 6. If I'm in the
right,
hospital, I'm level 2. So
right,
they're trying to
right.
find every way to keep me
Well,
here
and you need to be
officially.
level 2 is the thing.
Yeah.
You should never be at a level 6. Like, what the fuck is even that? Like, this is you've
So,
been in this for your, the bulk of your life, right? So at least
yeah.
half of it. So, okay. All right.
So
We're gonna,
yeah, but basically the way that they're doing it is the way they have to do it because I'm so healthy is they submit exception letters. And an exception letter, I'm an exception, lasts 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks they have to
I
submit
have
a
to
new
say,
one.
okay.
So I'm living here
As
bi-weekly
long as we
basically.
ride that out. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. All right. It is a it is a horrible position to be in, to have to hope for what you need to hope for. That's
Yes.
having talked to Corey Allen, who lost his brother, and his brother Jesse was an organ donor, and hearing the other side of that, of just like, you don't want to be rooting for there to be a heart available, but you also need a heart. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, this is not the kind of thing where we can be like, hey guys, if anybody out there is watching and doesn't need their heart, Geoff will take it. But I mean, I am hoping in some way. I mean, I guess this, the hospital system is plugged into everything. But I mean, it's that's a fucked up headspace to exist in, Geoff, I imagine. And
Yes.
I'm just, I know you keep things light, but I'm just so sorry that this is how, I'm just so sorry, because it shouldn't be, but
Yeah, it is. It is a very weird spot to be in. To have the doctors come in and go, well, Motorcycle season is here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean there's no good way to get what you need is the
Nah.
thing. So, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe it's just like a horrible person. Like we can hope somehow it's just some sort of like horrible person that, it works out as well as it possibly can. But I mean, it's okay. So we know we have new music coming out. We probably won't have the full album till the end of the year. That's fine. There's plenty of other music, and we didn't even get into. I don't even want to say it into Wanyu, but like we talked about it a little bit there. But like, there's so much music, guys. Like Titanosaur just has so much music, and do you think you'll release any more singles before December? Even though you're a little bit allergic to the whole single thing, it sounds like I don't think you could not put something out.
Yeah, no, there's
Okay.
definitely going to be other stuff out. Yeah.
Okay. So there will be other things to tide us over. But listen, before I let you go, you may or may not know what you're in for here, but I do need to do this to you before I let you rest. But we do like to end every show with a little segment that we like to call In the Vox Seat. And so I have asked every musician who has been on the show these same 5 questions, and they do usually hate the same one. And then the last one, as people know very well by now, has become a lightning rod issue. And we're going to get to all of that, but let's just start with, I'm really interested to know what you're going to do here, but if you had to sum up Titanosaur's music in 5 words or less, what would you say?
Oh, man. What is the description that I have that everybody
Oh
likes?
no, don't cheat. Don't cheat. And it can be a sentence, it can be a phrase or 2, it can be individual words. You could just do a series of clicks and snorts. It's really up to you. But just 5 words that pop to mind when you think of what Titanosaur is.
It's 6 words.
Well, tell me, maybe I can hyphenate one of them.
Or 7.
7 is pushing it.
No, I can take one out.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, now it's 6. Motorhead, fucking Metallica, up the ass. That's 6 words, I think.
We can hyphenate up the ass. These are things I say in my day-to-day life now, but we can absolutely do that. Yeah, okay, that is in your description, and it is a vivid one. And I think it definitely does let people know what they're in for. But okay, so there you go, little bit of butt play for Motorhead. But okay, so what is your favorite thing about being a musician?
Playing live is definitely, when I was able to play live, absolutely.
Okay.
Having that amount of volume and people receiving it, and yeah, definitely playing live.
Okay. So just feeding off the crowd and okay. All right. Yeah. But so now the flip side, your least favorite thing about being a musician?
I've only had one guitar for 40 years because they're so expensive.
Same guitar? You're kidding.
I've never had enough money to buy another one. So that's the problem. They're too expensive.
Guys, we got to send Geoff a guitar, man. We got to figure that out. I mean, within reason, because obviously I know there are like $11 billion guitars, but like if you could pick a solid, reasonably priced guitar, what would your dream guitar be within those very particular specifications? What would you like? Do you have an eye on?
Yeah. Well, I've always wanted a Gibson Les Paul. I guess everybody wants. So yeah, that's the one. I have a Fender Strat.
Okay. All right. So your least favorite thing about being a musician is only having the one guitar.
Yeah, that's too expensive.
I can understand that. I can totally understand. I feel like guitarists, it's like, losing a limb if you don't get to buy a guitar like every year or whatever. So that's a workhorse guitar you got right there.
Oh yeah.
Anybody has an extra guitar lying around, we'll get you Geoff's address. Anyone who doesn't want their Gibson, it's just so blah. You don't need whatever. You get something else. You just you let Geoff know. We'll hook you up. Okay, so This I'm interested too, because we've talked about, and I know enough about your influences that I have some idea, but I really don't know what you're going to say here. So if you had to choose just one album to listen to for the rest of your life, which album would you choose and why?
Yeah. See, that would either be Killing Joke, probably the Killing Joke, the second self-titled album.
Okay. Why that one?
Because it's so fucking good.
You're like, duh.
Okay. Yeah, it's got everything on it. It's well produced. Dave Grohl on drums. Yeah, it's got all different types of songs on it that are great to sing along to, and that I haven't gotten bored of yet. So
okay, that's the thing. If you can listen to something over and over again and you still enjoy it, that's probably a good desert island disc. But okay, Geoff, this is it. We are at the last question, and fans are to be won and lost here, riding on your answer. But I must request the following information from you. Your toilet paper roll. When you put it on the holder, does the toilet paper come from over the top? Do you pull it out from under the bottom? And why?
over the top, absolutely, because I'm so tall that if you put it under, that I gotta
But you're sitting
search for it.
down. You're sitting down. Toilets are the great equalizer. Everybody's sitting. How tall are you, by the way? Because I know generally your physiognomy, you're probably pretty tall.
Yeah, I'm 6'8".
Okay.
Sometimes 6'10", depending.
Okay, on whether you're sleeping like a boat or not. Yes. Okay, but so I'm imagining then that even at a sitting height, you are significantly taller than the average bear. So okay, I can see that. If the toilet paper holder were higher on the wall and we netted out the height issue, would you still be an over? Do you have any deep philosophical attachment to this, or is it just purely a mechanical issue for you?
Deep philosophical, no, but I definitely prefer over because, sometimes you'll lose the end, and if you're going under, you can't find it, and you gotta just spin.
It's like The Price is Right. You just okay. So we have another member of the Over Army. Freaky things. Joe likes you even more than he already did. Dom, we don't see Dom much anymore, but Dom from Jamsteak will just chalk this up as another sling and arrow. This is how it is being the king of the Under Army as he is. So, Geoff, I'm so happy that we finally managed to do this, and it is a weird thing to have to say to somebody, but I really hope that you don't need to be in the hospital for too much longer, because you're coming out of it with a brand new heart that is what you need. And it was some completely terrible person. So we're not wishing ill. I don't even know what all of the, or just magically that there's just one lying around they forgot about. And you have it and it's great. But I wish all the best for you. And I'm so happy that you have the freedom in this project, and that you're putting out everything that you can when you can. And this was so much fun for me to get to hear the way that you make your music. So thank you for spending the time with me.
Thank you very much. It was very in-depth. Very impressed.
Well, I mean, we toilet paper is you have to ask the serious, significant questions there. But no, guys, listen, please like, subscribe, follow, do all the things, support Titanosaur, send Geoff a guitar. Dude fucking needs it, man. I mean, think about how happy he'll be in the hospital playing his new Gibson. Just think about it. Think about that. We're gonna see if we can magical fairy something for you. But that's another Vox and guest in the book, guys. See you next time. Bye.